What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live here on a Thursday night. Blazers Uprise Live is presented by Bet Online. Use the promo code BELIEVE for a 50% reward bonus, BLEAV, if you want to get in on the current NBA playoff action. As the NBA playoffs roll along, the Clippers and the Suns are playing right now. This game will conclude soon. The Suns are up 8 with 5 minutes left. We'll see if they can beat the Kawhi and PG list Los Angeles Clippers. The Warriors beat the Kings and the Sixers beat the Nets. We can talk a little bit about the playoffs, but as far as that Nets game goes, we will talk about Damian Lillard sitting courtside, potentially recruiting players from maybe both teams, because there's a couple players in that series that are targets for the Blazers this offseason. So we'll talk this upcoming offseason. We'll talk Dame being courtside in Portland, and we'll talk NBA playoffs. Eric, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Just got done watching your stream with Chase on NBA Uprise. Fortunately, you guys didn't have the best game to cover, but still good nonetheless.
Yeah, got to start somewhere. And we did a live stream for Kings Warriors today. The Warriors absolutely demolished them. We're going to be doing some playoff watch party live streams over on our NBA channel, NBA Uprise. So if you're not yet subscribed, please go subscribe. We are 17 away from 1,000, and once we get 1,000, we can get monetized on that channel, which would be great for us. So there's a link in the chat if you want to go subscribe to that. Shout out to Chase. I am mentoring him and getting him rolling with some NBA stuff. It was his first time on a live stream on camera. I think he did pretty good, especially considering it was his first time on air. So shout out to him for doing it with me. But Eric, I want to do something with you at some point. That'll be fun. So the people should definitely go and subscribe to NBA Uprise.
Looks like we coordinated our outfits too today.
I know, all black. Is it
black hat?
Yeah, black hat. What brand of shirt are you wearing?
I don't know. I usually know, but it's just some random like Costco brand, I think. So just a plain classic.
I was trying to see how much we coordinated.
Black shirt, yeah.
Yeah, Your room's a lot lighter. That is the big difference. I am in the cave right now, so.
Yeah.
Tori needs a Blazers cap. I have a Blazers cap.
I'll turn my hat backwards for Trevin.
Yes. And for me, so we can truly match.
My hair is not as messy as yours does. And I don't have that little tag that always shows.
Well, you should. I need to, here, I'll show it off even more. Because this tag is just a thing. There you go. Anyway, we're going to talk. You wanted to... I like your title, Eric. Eric came up with the title. Dame recruiting in Brooklyn. Very well done. We're going to talk about Dame in his recruitment. Is there anything else that you want to touch upon other than what I said in the intro in today's show?
Well, yeah, of course, our Tankathon and our normal, trade, maybe different trade ideas, shenanigans.
Yep. Mike Posner says, ha, good thumbnail, but come on, bro, you don't recruit by going to a game. You do it in private over the summer, over the phone, or at a workout. Mike Posner. It's YouTube.
That's no fun.
It's YouTube. People will click on a thumbnail that says, Dame recruiting? So, and also, Dame is probably trying to recruit players on both of those teams, so it's not complete clickbait. So that's how YouTube works. That is good YouTubing. That's why I am proud of it. So we will talk about if Dame is recruiting in the middle of the game. Maybe the ball went out of bounds and it's a dead ball. And Dame is talking to Mikhail saying, Mikhail, come to Portland. I don't know. Who knows?
It literally showed him before the game talking to Embiid and Mikhail and those guys. So... Yeah. Anyway, one of those two guys is not going to be moving on past the first round. Anyway. Well, I have a question. You can have one person from either one of these teams. You get a good deal, but obviously if you choose Embiid, you're giving up a lot more than you are for Mikhail. But So who do you want? Mikhail at a slightly lower price, or like basically Anthony Sharp and multiple firsts for Embiid, but you get Embiid.
I mean, I'd take either of those guys for the right price. I don't know what the right price is. I would probably prefer Mikhail at a slightly cheaper price. If it means the difference is Sharp and Simons, then I'd probably... Who would you rather have? Would you rather have Embiid and Simons or Sharp and Mikhail?
Embiid and Simons, I think.
Would you... Okay, well, let me ask you this way. Would you rather have Simons or Sharp right now?
I don't think you'd get both. This is going to be controversial, but I think I'd still rather have Simons at this point.
Interesting. This sounds like a good chat poll to get us warmed up for this show.
Well, it's going to be overwhelming Sharp. That's not fair.
Well, I mean, it's just personal opinion, so no opinion is wrong.
No, I know, but I'm just saying it's going to be heavily favored towards. I mean, for the record, I want to keep both of them. I don't want to trade either one. So that's where I'm coming from. But
yeah, this is more so put you on the spot with a hard decision where you can only keep one of the two. You predicted it. It's 2/3. Three-fourths.
Yeah, see,
3/4.
my thing is, if we trade for Embiid, if we trade for Mikhail, if we trade for OG, I still think Simons fits better with those players, at least for next year. I mean, that could change rather quickly if Sharp keeps developing, obviously, but I just feel like Ant can play off ball. Sharp was a good catch and shoot 3-point shooter as well this year, but not as big of a sample size as Anthony, who's proven to be efficient off ball. So, and then defense, I don't feel like there is a huge difference either way. So, yeah, I'd rather have the guy that I know is battle tested versus the guy that you don't even know how he'd fit in with a group like that where he's not having the ball at all. Like, let's say we traded for Embiid. Sharp's like the fourth option behind Grant, Embiid, and Dame. Like, I don't know how he would react to that situation. I already know Ant can thrive in that situation. Sharp, I do want Sharp. I'm not saying I want to trade him or anything, but I've been saying this all summer that I think he is better if he mentors or masters that off the bench role first before just throwing him in and just assuming he's going to be fine as a starter next year.
Yeah.
But long term, it's hard to argue that Sharp's going to be ultimately have a higher ceiling and be better player. So
yeah, I would keep Sharp simply because I think there's a solid chance he's as good as Simons next year. So, plus the upside, that's why I would take Sharp. Obviously, he might not be as good as Simons next year, but given his play late in the season, you can definitely make that case, assuming a sophomore leap happens. So that's why I would take Sharp. But yeah, just interesting to think about. That's why I phrased that like Mikhail and Sharp, because I was thinking people would probably rather keep Sharp. So Mikhail would be nice for this team. Embiid would be a true superstar. Obviously, if either of those guys becomes available, the Blazers will pursue hard. And here's the thing, though. In regards to Dame recruiting, both of those guys are under contract. It does come down to a trade. And who knows if those teams would want to trade those guys where they want to go. Those teams probably won't pull the Joe Cronin and just trade guys where they want to go and take pennies on the dollar for it. Like the Norman Powell trade. I mean, look at Norman Powell today, Eric. 36 points on 13 for 21, shooting 6 for 11 from 3 in a playoff game. I mean, do you think we could trade the 23rd pick for a player that's able to do that in a playoff game? Probably not. And the 23rd pick is probably more valuable of an asset than we got back in that freaking trade. So, I don't know where I'm going with this. I was just thinking about that earlier. Just kind of funny to think about. The Clippers have, by the way, cut it to 4 Russell Westbrook after he made his first free throw. We'll see if he makes the second. This game is not over. We'll keep you posted with this score.
The other thing is too, when it comes to Ant versus Sharp, if it's for McHale, I mean, Ant's part of that friendship group too, with McHale and Dame. So it's not. They already all know each other. I feel like they would just hit the ground running next year. The chemistry would be good already, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a little hard to know how Sharp will fit in with the starters next year, especially if we upgrade those positions.
Yep. Westbrook made his second free throw to cut at the 3, and then Torrey Craig hit a 3. So Suns back to 6.
I did hear a part of that interview that was mentioned in chat. That
why?
Well, just someone told me what was said. That Cronin said that he still thinks Anthony and Dame could be the most dynamic backcourt in the NBA. And so sounded a lot like, I didn't hear his tone or anything, but the way the person described it to me, it sounded a lot like what Olshey would always say about the Dame and CJ backcourt. So, yeah.
Do you like that Cronin said that, or do you dislike that Cronin said that? How do you feel about that?
Well, see, it always comes back to me where, like, this is the problem that Cronin has put this team in. So I agree. I want to keep both Ant and Sharp, and I don't think you have to get rid of one of them. But Cronin's almost made it so you might have to get rid of one of them because if Dame wants to make a bunch of moves, we only have so many contracts that are tradable. I think it's like 5 contracts that are tradable, and 3 out of those, or 2 out of the 5 are like minimum contracts, and then I guess it's 6 tradable. It's just like we don't have many over $3 million. So we have the 4, Jabari, Trendon, Keon, Knox, 3 million or under, and then we have Nas and Sharp around 6 million, and then Anthony and Nurk. That's just not a lot of contracts to trade if you're trying to upgrade. So I understand like that you have to trade good players out sometimes. So like if we get Embiid, obviously Anthony's going to have to be part of that trade. But I just don't think they're thinking of it that way. I think they think they're going to get a good small forward and improve their bench and be fine. And they're going to go all out for that small forward, and I think it might be a painful trade, but it's going to be what they think is best for the team. But he also, I guess Cronin also said that he really thinks Sharp could start next year too, so I don't know.
So Cronin doesn't know what he wants to do or who he values, and we can't trust a word he says anyway, because he'll say he wants Josh Hart at every position, and then he decides to have Josh Hart at no position. I don't know. Like, people have asked him about that interview. I don't like the podcast, so I don't want to sit here and say no, because I don't want to listen to that podcast, but it's the truth. Like, I just don't. Whatever. B, are we going to believe what Joe Cronin tells any media member of this team? Like, there's been a number of times where he's said things and then his actions haven't been in line with what he said. He said at last year's trade deadline that he was looking at, or I'm paraphrasing, but he was expecting to balance the team more in terms of size in the offseason, and then his number 1 draft pick was a 6'5 guard / wing, and his number 1 free agent signing was a 6'2 guard / wing. And he went into the season with Drew Eubanks as the backup center and no third-string center. And you had to rely on Trent Watford playing center minutes. Like, he did not balance the team in terms of size. The stuff he said about Josh Hart, right? Like, he raved about Josh Hart, and then they trade him. Now, part of that was Jody, but regardless, it's not like what Cronin has said has ever really been indicative of anything. Like, him saying that about Anthony Simons and Dame, that doesn't make me think there's any less chance that Anthony Simons gets traded this offseason. So,
well, I mean, he did say pretty defiantly at the trade deadline that every decision he makes is based around Dame and Ant, and then he also said basically included Grant on that later. So I don't know. I got the sense from what people have said about it is that that he wants to try to add to that trio, not necessarily trade one of the three.
I mean, yeah, but in order to add anything meaningful enough to that trio, you probably have to trade Ant, is what it becomes. Or you have to trade Sharp, and that could be an absolute mistake. Like, I don't see any realistic way they keep both Sharp and Ant and get the small forward they need and get the bench help they need. That's just not realistic. The only way it's realistic is, like, if you get Wemby, and then you can start Wemby and Grant the forwards and probably be fine just because you have so much rim protection, right? And because both those guys can play on the perimeter. So it's like if you get extremely lucky, maybe. But that's the thing is, like, his plan of building around those guys doesn't seem like much of a plan that's realistic, because how are you going to just build around those guys without giving up Ant or Sharp? The only way it happens is if you get lucky in the draft. Maybe it's the second pick, and then you trade down the second pick for, you know, a later lottery pick and a good role player, and then you trade that later lottery pick for a good role player, and then you sign the good role player to the MLE. Like, I don't know. Without lottery luck, and you can't plan for luck, this team probably has to trade one of the two guys. So I don't like a plan, quote-unquote, being dependent upon luck. Because that's not much of a plan. That's just you sitting there with your fingers crossed, hoping that things work out.
Yeah, well, and then the tax thing. So he said that Jody is willing to pay the tax or whatever. But, okay, so then why do we have to trade Hart? Why couldn't we re-sign him then?
Why couldn't we take back Wiseman?
Why couldn't we take
duck the tax?
Why couldn't we take back any salary in any trades? Why did we trade for people that were either having team options or no salary at all for next year? So why was that the case if Jody was already willing at the trade deadline to go into the tax next year, and that's been the plan all along? So yeah, to me, it's I'll believe it when I see it, because. Like, I'm sure if they got Embiid or Mikal Bridges or something and they're going to go slightly into the tax, I'm guessing Jody will allow it. So I'm not saying she won't or whatever. But you have to kind of have those contracts, and you have to – because that's what people always say. It's like, well, it would have been stupid to be in the tax the last 2 years, right? Which I agree, until you get to the point where now you're saying – we're going to cash in all these assets this summer. We've been building up all these assets. One, we didn't get enough assets in any of the trades really that we made. And two, you have to have the contracts to match those assets. So like the number 2 pick is very valuable even on its own. If you had an expiring contract, whether that's Wiseman or if we did that stupid trade I talked about where you get like Kem Birch or something for free right now, like those kind of things, you have to have some sort of salary, and the other team's not going to care who that player is because they're just wanting the number 2 pick in that situation. So the pick can have a lot of value itself, but if you don't have the contracts to attach it to, just like with the second round picks, like they're basically worthless without who you're going to get for second round picks when you don't have any salary to attach to. You're basically just having to get that. And if you are able to get that person for second round picks, that team probably wanted to salary dump him anyway, and you probably could have gotten a situation like the Jeremy Grant trade last year where you got him for way cheaper because you had money available, but the TPE is not big enough, and the expiring contracts we have aren't big enough. So it's frustrating to me that he's like, oh yeah, we're going to go in the tax, or Jody's fine with it, but it's tough without actually having the pieces to make a run and go all in this summer.
Well, it's always funny because the tax conversation in regards to, like, should she be willing to pay the tax for this team? It's a question of which came first, the chicken or the egg, because guess what? Yeah, she probably shouldn't pay the tax for a team that's not good, but also a team might not be good because she's not willing to pay the tax, you know? Like, it goes hand in hand. If you're willing to shell out a little bit more money, normally you can put together a little better roster. If you're willing to go into the tax, Rui Hachimura probably becomes a Blazer, and maybe they keep Josh Hart, and all of a sudden we're talking about this team playing their way into the playoffs or the play-in, and we're talking playoffs right now. You know what I'm saying? And then maybe it was justified to pay the tax. I don't know. That's the thing is, when you pinch pennies, it hurts the product on the floor, and it's like, in the end, pinching pennies justifies pinching pennies. That's what it leads to, because it leads to a product that's not as good.
The other thing is, too, I mean, Cronin's shown now at 2 trade deadlines and last offseason that he can avoid the tax. We got 2 years ago, we were like 20-some million out under the tax after those trades, if not more. And then last year we were over 6 million under the tax after the trade deadline. So, like, if you're Jody, why don't you trust Cronin to, like, earlier in the season this year? Why, like, we could have signed someone, gone into the tax, knowing that he had to get us under the tax at the trade deadline if it didn't work out or whatever. So that's also part of the equation is, like, Dame goes down or something, he's going to be out several weeks. We don't sign a backup point guard, and we're trying to play like Keon and whoever at backup point guard. After the trade deadline, we're playing Cam Reddish at backup point guard or whatever. And so, like, things like that lead to maybe losses along the way where and these things all add up to where Dame now is mad they didn't make the playoffs or make a run at the playoffs, and is feeling like they have to do something different than what they were doing. So yeah, it's just I don't know. To me, all those little things add up, and I don't like when people say, well, it would have been stupid to go in the tax. Well, yeah, but they easily could have gotten out of it, and they could have made another trade at the trade deadline and still been way under the tax. I just don't get why they're not trying to do that. And people will argue too that they were tanking or whatever, but they sat like 2/3 of their team the last 2 weeks, you know, like, why couldn't they have done that and gotten good players, you know, and just sit them too?
Yeah, exactly. Somebody said there's a higher chance Dame goes to Philly. Philly has no assets, just stop college. But I forgot what I was going to say. Dang it. That's happening too much lately.
You're getting old, man.
I know. Dude, my memory is completely fading.
Yeah, Dame would be awesome on the Sixers, but they don't have any, like Tori said, they can't really trade many future picks, and they don't really have, I mean, what are we going to take? Tobias Harris and a first-round pick? You know,
yeah, really. Like Maxey probably, you know, but that's not enough for Dame. Yeah. But as far as the whole Cronin conversation, like, why would we believe anything that comes out of his mouth? Like, he hasn't backed up his words with action ever. So until he does that, I'm not just gonna believe what he says. Also, like, there's a comment the other day that was like, you guys should get Cronin as a guest and this is a guest, blah blah blah, like, you know, like other podcasts or whatever. I'm not. If Cronin says something and then doesn't back up his words, I'm gonna call him out on it. Guess what? That makes it basically impossible to get him as a guest. Like, I'm not gonna kiss his ass, you know? I'm not gonna kiss his ass. I'm going to hold him accountable. I'm going to criticize him when I feel like he deserves to be criticized. And I'm not going to hold back from that because, oh, well, if I criticize him, then maybe he won't do another interview with me. That's why we've never really done guests, if you guys have wondered. I don't want to...
Well, one, we don't have the access. But
well, we don't have the access, A. But B...
But we don't have the access because of what you're about to say.
yeah. I mean, it goes hand in hand. Yeah. Because we are outspoken, and that doesn't go over well, you know, when it's critical. And it's not like we're just looking to criticize or we're looking to be unfair or whatever. It's just... It comes down to, like, even if we did have access, man, I don't want to sit here like, oh, this guy gave us a few interviews, therefore he had a bad game. I'm not going to criticize him because I don't want to upset him and lose one of my interviewees, right? Like, I don't want to be in that position. That's why I've never even really tried. You know, I don't expect us trying to even work in the first place, but even if it could, I just like being able to come on here and give my opinion and not feel pressured to placate to certain people within this organization or certain players, etc., because of some sort of connection with interviews or whatever. So I had a comment like that recently, and I've had people in the past say you guys should, and I know it'd be cool. It'd be really cool, absolutely, and I know you guys would enjoy that. But that's the reason, in case you were wondering.
Well, I mean, there is a reason why none of those people ever have anything critical to say about Cronin.
Yep.
Like the worst it is like, oh, trade deadline, that was disappointed, but Cam's gonna be really good, you know. Like he's gonna, yeah, I don't know. It's just, yeah, those guys get there because that's what they do. Yeah, I'm not gonna be, I wouldn't be a jerk or anything. Like I would have loved to have Olshey on too. Like I would have been like giving Olshey softball questions either. But I think that was one of the things that Olshey really messed up on, because Cronin, I mean, despite him, I mean, a lot of us can see that he's just basically all talk and in over his head a little bit. He comes across that pretty much every interview, which is fine. I mean, he's an inexperienced GM. It's not necessarily his fault or anything. But the thing is, he's getting like passes because he's out there putting himself out there and being nice and going on those shows and doing those interviews. And whether he's requesting softball questions or not, it still makes him so, like, the fan base sees him out there talking and is, you know, relating to the fans and talking about stuff. And I think that was Olshey's biggest misstep, was he just completely turned that avenue off and kind of, you know, burn that bridge with the fans and with media and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think Cronin's doing a good job of PR and stuff like that, and it's led to him getting hardly any blowback on some of his decisions. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, if it costs us Dame because he was not good at his job, that's going to be a tough pill, I think, for anyone to swallow, hopefully. But I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. And also, I'm not good at sugarcoating things either. So well, I don't want to be put in a position where I feel like I should, talking to a GM like or somebody important in an interview. Like, I suck at sugarcoating things. I'm just going to say what I think because that's the easiest way to do it. And sometimes it might come across as a little bit harsh, but it's I think it's better than sugarcoating some things, you know? Like, I'm not going to placate or anything.
I don't know if this was like, because I'm sure like PR will come to you and say, okay, this topic is off limits, like Gary Payton's off limits or something, right? But yeah, like I would say, well, like that's like I want to talk to him about it, like not just like ask him what he knew about Gary Payton and like, did you know he was hurt when you signed him? Did you know he was going to have that core surgery? Did that make you pause on signing him, or did you think about going after someone else first? So I do want to ask him those things, but then I also want to ask it in a way like, how hard was it to decide whether Gary Payton was worth getting hard capped and then cutting off future moves, or was it an easy decision? Because he said they were going in the tax last year. They said that last year. They made all those moves so they could be, you know, a tax team and do all that kind of stuff last offseason. And then they hard capped themselves and waive DD, waive and stretch him. They waive and stretch Bledsoe and all that stuff. But we could have had that $19 million expiring contract to attach to stuff this last whole season if we didn't get hard capped. And that's goes back to the earlier conversation where you have to kind of you have to be willing to pay to take chances to be able to use those pieces. It's not necessarily, oh, you either go in the tax because you're really good or you don't because you're bad or whatever. Like, you do have to sometimes take risks with contracts like that. So this summer we don't even have the possibility of that Eric Bledsoe $19 million to trade before getting hard cap. So like, I don't know. It's just, I feel like he's put this team in a very tough position. I'd like to ask him how he thinks he's going to accomplish all in or winning trades without without contracts to go out and stuff like that. But like I just don't understand how people don't see that. Like it seems like we're the only ones talking about that, you know?
Yeah, and as far as the whole Jody's willing to pay the tax thing, like there's comments in chat. I'm glad a lot of you in chat get it because Eric Olson says Cronin wouldn't dare expose that his boss is limiting him. Cronin
fine.
is going to Cronin, and this is smart by the way.
Yeah.
This is not a critique.
Right.
Cronin is going to carry Jody's water. Like he's going to he's not going to say, "Oh, she won't pay." Like he's not going to put the blame on her. That's his boss. So of course he's going to carry her water. Don't read into that. The thing is you should always, in regards to GMs and owners, always read into actions, especially if there's a pattern in their actions. Read into that above all else. It's the same way for my freaking Seattle Mariners, who have been cheap for the longest time, finally made the playoffs last year, and then this offseason weren't willing to spend at all, so this season they have a designated hitter who cannot hit, who's hitting like .071 as a designated hitter. This is the one thing they're supposed to do is hit, because they don't field. But guess what? The Mariners were cheap, right? But the Mariners didn't go into the offseason like, yeah, we're going to be cheap. We just made the playoffs. The fan base is more excited than ever. We're going to be cheap. They're not going to say that. But guess what? Their history of actions for years have shown that they're cheap. And then even after their first playoff series in 20 years, they still go into the offseason and be completely cheap. So what's the pattern of actions with this Blazer team? It's that Jody won't pay the tax. There's, like you just said, they line things up to be able to potentially go into the tax last offseason. And guess what? They still didn't go into the tax. They waive and stretch guys, so they're going to be on our books for multiple years as dead money, but that also made the cap hit last offseason low enough so that we could duck the tax. And then what happened at the deadline? They made sure to duck the tax by multiple millions of dollars and not take on any salary going into this offseason. So why would we sit here and just assume like, oh yeah, Joe's just willing to pay the tax. That's no problem to her. Why would we believe that? No reason to. The actions have not lined up with that line of thinking. Now, if they're able, as you said, Eric, if they're able to get a Mikal Bridges or a Joel Embiid, then maybe that changes. But anything short of that, I would 1,000% expect Portland to duck the tax once again.
Yeah, or be under an edict that, like, if we're not this good by this date, then you have to duck the tax by the trade deadline. I could see that. And Cronin, to his credit, has done that very well. He's very good at dumping players for nothing and getting below the tax. So that is a good strategy that he can accomplish if that's what Jody's goal is. But Bouquets is asking, is there any benefit to not taking on those contracts? So here's the benefit. The benefit is it's easier to stay under the tax next year. So that's why I don't believe that they are willing to go in the tax no matter what. I know that's not what he said, but I don't believe that that's their plan to go into the tax unless one of those trades Tori mentioned happen, because if that was the case, they wouldn't have minded having that salary on the books for next year. But the only reason you don't want contracts on the book in future years is A, if you're trying to clear cap space, which obviously they're not, because the only way they can clear cap space is if they let everyone walk, including Jeremy Grant, and that's also a disaster. And they're not gonna. We're losing Dame if Grant walks, basically, because I don't know how Cronin survives if Grant walks, because I don't know, he has no chance of keeping this together with Dame if that happens. So they knew they were paying Grant, and I believe that they made an educated decision at the trade deadline to possibly re-sign Grant and still stay under the tax next year if they want to. while if they would have taken on those contracts, they could have still done it, but it would have been a lot harder. You might have to pay to get rid of a contract sometime next season to just deduct the tax or take a bad trade back like the Norm Rocco trades or whatever. But yeah, it's just I think it's a sign that they're still looking at it like we don't really want to go in the tax. We will if we obviously get a no-brainer situation, but we're not going to like willingly be a tax team.
DJ Vega says Jody was willing to go into the tax eventually when we were trying to trade for OG. They knew Grant and OG were due for contracts within the next 2 years. So let me get this right. After multiple years where they have purposefully ducked the tax, we're going to use a hypothetical that didn't even happen to say that eventually at some point down the line, then she would have paid. Oh, well. It just doesn't really make sense to me. They would have ducked the tax with OG this past season, and then guess what? Owners that duck the tax, they make moves to duck the tax. OG is under contract for $18 million this year. If we had traded for him last offseason, guess what? We're trading Hart's salary out, and we're trading another salary out. This offseason, it would have come down to, okay, well, what contracts do we have to trade out, or what moves can we not make in order to duck the tax? Mm-hmm. That's how they operate. It doesn't mean, if they traded for OG last year, that wouldn't have automatically meant that they were for sure going to pay the tax at some point.
Because OG would have made about the same or slightly less than Hart. Let's just say the trade was Hart and number 7. Like we didn't end up giving up that future first, which I think the Blazers would have done. Yeah, Hart and number 7 is roughly 18 million or so. So yeah, it would have been right around the same. So I think they would have still tried to duck the tax even with OG on the books. And they probably don't sign Peyton. They probably sign someone to the tax Emily then. So they probably, duck it completely.
Yep.
But then, like you said, Grant then wouldn't have had probably as big of a role because OG would have taken some of the scoring for him. So it wouldn't have been a situation where he outplayed the 4 years 112. That probably would have been about perfect for him. So he probably signs that extension right when it's available, like the plan was all along. And then you could probably word it so, it's lower in the first couple years. So, 25 million or something the first year. And then with OG's 18 million next year, I think that's just enough to stay under the tax again. So, but yeah, I mean, once it comes time to the extension, sure. But DJ Vega, this is what the problem is. They pumped up the CJ trade as getting Hart and Grant, right? And less than a season later, they were already talking about dumping. We have to dump Hart because we don't want to lose him for nothing. And so that same scenario, like Tori said, likely would have played out with someone here, whether that was OG or not. The only difference is if the team was winning. If the team was winning and we were like the number 2 seed or something, like, yes, sure. That's where I'm talking about no-brainer. We're winning, so maybe she's more willing to do it. But if we weren't, if we're struggling, or like even because there were some dang good teams, the Clippers, Warriors, like the Lakers weren't a good team, but they obviously are trying to win with AD and LeBron and stuff. So those teams were all fighting to not be in the play-in on the last day of the season. Not even like all season long or for part of the season. It was literally the last game of the season. All those teams had a chance to be in the play-in still. And they were thought of as much more like trying to win now than we were. So, like, there's a very good chance that team was not necessarily, for sure, like, going to be a tax team. So I could have very easily seen them do the same exact thing and just be like, well, next year we have to trade OG because we can't afford to keep him.
Yep. Do not give Jody Allen credit for hypothetically being willing to pay the tax until she actually shows that she's willing to pay the tax. Like, we're getting way ahead of ourselves here. And the reality of the past couple years is she hasn't been. The reality of the past 3-4 years is that she hasn't been. So until that changes, that is the status quo. It's that simple. hypotheticals aside, because you can come up with any hypothetical to try and claim anything. That's why it's a hypothetical. If it automatically put us in the tax last offseason, then okay, that's legitimate. But 2 seasons from now, she probably would have found a way to duck the tax. And that's what it comes down to this offseason. It's like there probably isn't a realistic move that guarantees the Blazers are a top 2 or 3 seed, so I'm not expecting her to pay the tax. If she does, then we had a really good offseason.
It had someone in the comments of one of our, I think it was either the mailbag or one of our last streams, saying the Blazers were 7th in payroll 2 seasons ago or whatever. So I looked it up, and we finished 23rd in payroll that year that they said was 7th. We were like up there at the beginning of the season, but then we traded everyone, and then got way, way below. And then last year we ended up 20th in salary. So, or this season. So, we're bottom 2/3 of the league basically last 2 seasons while trying to win with Dame, and so that's not dedicated to winning. And also the other part of this equation is, and this was also one of Olshey's biggest problems as well, is that when you have a team that's right up against the tax line, yes, it's like, ooh, you planned it so well to be like, at one point we were like 67K under the tax this year, right? Going into the season or something like that. So yes, you planned it perfect. Like you got all these contracts to fit in, you stretched a couple and made it work. So you ducked the tax. But is that good GMing if your team sucks that you have a roster that was right up against the tax? Like, you're the one who signed or traded for all these guys, and you're the one who did all this. So you need to like do a better job of the players that you have under contract up against the tax, to where you don't have all these needs and depth issues and size issues and things like that. So to me, it's not just about avoiding the tax. It's also like, why is this team even up against the tax with that unbalanced of a roster to begin with? And Cronin was directly responsible for all the members of this team. So I just don't understand how he's getting a pass for that.
Yep. As I've said numerous times before, this offseason is the offseason to make your determination of Joe Cronin permanently. Like, if he doesn't get it done this offseason, there's no more excuses left. It was wait till the offseason, wait till the deadline, wait till the offseason, wait till the deadline. Now it's wait till the offseason.
Oh, I've definitely heard people say he has until next trade deadline.
I mean, they're going to keep pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back. But guess what? The greatest Blazer ever is becoming impatient. So guess what? You can't keep pushing it back. The only way you can push it back is by going out there and getting really high quality role players that would make this team noticeably better off the bat. You know, like I explained it last stream, like if you get like a Gafford as a backup center, Dorian Finney-Smith, and I don't know, like Bruce Brown, right?
It's not good enough for Dame, though.
Yeah, is that enough for Dame? It's questionable, but that's the bare minimum. Like, they have to go out there and identify and get really high-quality role players and put themselves in a position where they can still make a splash at the deadline. Okay, that's the only way he can push it back to the deadline. But guess what? That's not even pushing it back, because that is making noticeable gains and improvements in role players, which our role players sucked last year. So, noticeable gains and improvements in role players would actually mean something for this team. It's probably not enough, but it would get the team competitive enough to maybe not have to play their way into the playoffs. Maybe they could be a 5 or 6 seed, right? With better role players. So you at least have to get to that point. You cannot fail to meet that point this offseason and say, well, just wait. You absolutely can't, which is why, as I've said numerous times, this offseason is the offseason for Joe Cronin to either make it happen or for him to prove that he absolutely can't. And if he doesn't at least get to that benchmark, and part of that would be valuing assets correctly, if he doesn't do that, then I don't think I'll ever be able to trust him, and I will criticize him and criticize him and criticize him for that offseason. So I'm not being too hard on him right now because while I think he's made a bunch of mistakes as a Blazer GM, this is his offseason to correct it all. This is his offseason to prove himself, okay? So this is his opportunity. He's either going to take it and blossom, or he's going to show me everything he showed me as a Portland Trail Blazer GM so far. We'll see. Shout out to Grace Who's Investigates with a $10 dono. Says, I am for the rebuild option, letting Ant and Sharp and others sprout their wings, draft quality players. Doesn't some part of you guys want to see that too? Well, Gray, thank you for the $10 dono, but I'm curious what you've been seeing because I have seen Ant and Sharp sprout their wings. I've seen us draft a quality player in Sharp, and we have 2 first-round picks this offseason in order to draft quality players, so I don't really understand how that's not already happening. But thank you for the $10 dono.
I mean, he's basically saying, aren't we ready to move on from Dame?
I know what he's saying,
but yeah, no, I still feel this organization owes it to Dame to give him a legit chance. If he wants to be here, wants to win here, I believe he should be giving that option. But I mean, we can't be dumb about it either. I said earlier in the show, I don't want to trade Anthony or Sharp. Part of that is because, I hope they're on the team long after Dame's gone still, and that's the next era of Blazer basketball. But I still feel like both of those players can help us win now too. But unfortunately, the teams put themselves in a situation where they might have to choose some of those over the other. But I still think it's very likely that they overpay for a small forward using future picks and assets, and then they fill out the bench, whether it's free agency or other small trades or whatever, and they think that's good enough.
Yep. And guess what? I hate the narrative that you have to trade Dame in order to let Ant and or Sharp grow. Because guess what? In order to be a truly great player, you have to, unless you're otherworldly, you have to be able to play next to other great players that have the ball in their hands a lot of the times. You have to be able to learn how to play off them, and then when you have the ball, to make things happen at a high level. So, if anything, learning to play next to a guy like Dame is not a bad thing for these guys. A, he's a good mentor. B, it's probably never a situation where you're going to be able to give Sharp the ball and he's going to get 35 a game and you don't have to have another great scorer next to him. You know what I mean? So he has to learn how to play next to a player that has the ball a lot. But Dame this year played off the ball more than ever. Dame did a good job playing off the ball this year. Guess what? You remember Ant got going in the third game of the season in the third quarter against Denver, and Dame was just looking for him and looking for him and looking for him? The thing is, Dame became ball dominant because he had no help and had to be ball dominant. But he was had the most efficient
year
year
ever. Ant got
ever.
hurt. We had no other ball handlers really.
Nope.
Ant got hurt. Hart got traded. Who else is going to handle the ball?
Yeah. So I mean that's just silly to me. Like I hate that narrative. I absolutely hate that narrative. Like if Sharp can't figure out how, like if Sharp can't play next to Dame, who plays on and off the ball and is a great player, then that's worrisome for Sharp because he's probably never going to be Michael Jordan. I mean, you look at Luka Doncic. There's questions that I have about him being able to win a championship despite how great he is, because I don't know if he can coexist next to another really, really good player. And I don't think he's enough by himself to get it done. Because you have more star power in the league, and it's you have more 30-point per game scorers. The skill gap at the top of the league in terms of superstars and all-stars has shrunk. Especially this season. So, go ahead.
He says, I've seen games like that at the start of the season. That great basketball was without Dame playing much. What are you talking about, Gray?
Okay. Shout out to Chris S. with the 2. What currency is that?
I'm not looking.
Oh, it's I always forget this currency.
Is it pounds, probably?
Yeah, £2 dono from Chris S. What's up, Chris? Says realistic target for Dame today. Restricted free agent Paul Reed. Paul Reed. Yep, that's probably who Dame was trying to recruit. He was probably trying to be realistic, honestly. So Paul Reed, come on down. Although that would that be tampering?
I don't know. But he didn't play the first 5 or 6 games. What? What are you talking about, Gray?
Bro, Gray. What in the world? You think Dame didn't play the first 5 or 6 games? You need to go back and check, Gray. You need to go back and check, Gray.
What? He had back-to-back 40-point games at the beginning of the season, didn't he?
You don't remember him going off against LA and hitting that clutch 3? You don't remember him feeding Simons when he went off against the Nuggets?
Great. The team fell off when he got hurt after the good start, not because he wasn't playing. Like, that's when they started to fall off. What the heck, Gray? Come on. Like, I know you're a Dame hater now, but like, you don't like make stuff up. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, I can pull up my Internet Explorer Chrome. I can put it on the screen, and we could go look at box scores from the first 5 or 6 games if you really want to.
Well, no, we were 4-0, remember? And then we played the Heat at home, and he got hurt, and we ended up losing that game.
Yep.
I think we were down like 8 or 9 when he got hurt.
Yep.
And then he missed the next couple, but we played Houston, and then we played Memphis, and we lost to Memphis. And then this is just all off the top of my head. And then didn't we go on that road trip then? So we both Dame and Ant missed that Phoenix game, and we won. And then we got blown out the next night. And then we won in Charlotte. Okay, big whoop. Who cares? And then I think there was one more game before New Orleans. If I don't, was there one more game? Philly or something? No, not at Philly. Not Philly. I thought there was one game between that. But yeah,
you know what's funny is like Gray, like a little more than a week ago, I went and snipped stream highlights from like the first
Miami.
7 games of the year.
We played Miami. So we win Miami.
Dame played
that game. He also played the Charlotte game we won.
In that Miami game, guess what? He had the game-winning assist.
Yeah.
To Josh Hart.
And then so he gave up the ball in that situation.
Yep.
And then they ended up sitting him out in the New Orleans game, and we won that one. That was probably was one of our best games without him.
Yeah. And then
he played at the beginning of last year too. He got hurt and then got that shot. He got the cortisone shot or whatever, and then came back and still wasn't really good. So they decided to shut him down. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, shout out to I just did a whole season recap video and went through like every box score and like So that's. Yeah.
But anyways, Paul Reed would be a great addition, I think. But I just don't think those are the kind of players they're going to be interested in looking for. But those are the kind of players we should be targeting to fill out like the bench and to do that kind of stuff. But instead, we'll re-sign Drew or something instead. But yeah.
Shout out to Adam vs. Eve, $20 dono says, do you believe Jody's budget allows for Cronin to build a championship team around Dame? Thanks for all you and Eric do sharing your wisdom. Thank you, Adam vs. Eve. Appreciate you and appreciate the banger $20 dono. I think Jody's budget makes things tougher, but I also think Cronin could be better working within that budget at the same time. Mm-hmm. And then his ability to build a championship is dependent upon what becomes available out there.
Yep.
And if he has the skill set and the negotiation tact in order to execute in terms of getting those players to Portland.
Yep.
So there's multiple factors.
Yeah, well, for example, the Wiseman thing. So you just, instead of cutting Greg Brown, you find a team like the Spurs, or maybe you include him in the Hornets trade or something. Like, you just there had to have been a team like that would have taken him for free or something. So you find another team for that. You don't take back Knox. So then that part of that trade never happens. So you end up with Wiseman, and you have that $12 million contract, and all of a sudden you have a tool to still you can still be frugal and not go like into the super tax or whatever next year, but you also have pieces to where you can move around and do things, and you still would have been under the tax this year. So I just I'm with you. Like I think he is limited on how he can do it since he's taken over, but I think he's also done a bad job of maneuvering around that as well, and kind of using that as an excuse. So I don't like either.
Yeah. And shout out to Kieran with the $5 dono says, I hate when people base their analysis off of individual plays that they happen to be paying attention for, and then in parentheses, this is not directed at Gray. Shout out to Kieran with the $5 dono. I mean, the perfect example of that, Kieran, is people that base their analysis of defense off of blocks, when it's like 2% of a player's defensive play.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's confirmation bias. It's taking one shred of evidence and making it out to be an entire narrative.
Well, I mean, I could post like, I mean, it's hard to go find these individual plays, but if I could just bring up a play automatically through my head, I could give you like 10 examples of Drew Eubanks being super lazy and not working hard and costing us a basket or something because
you've done that in one game.
Yeah, so
that's
like
10 plays is
like,
more than currency.
Yeah, but like I'm just saying, like it goes both ways. So like I think it's the whole world, especially here in America, has been very like everyone. I mean, like I'm guilty of this too. We're all guilty of it. It's just confirmation bias. So like if you want to believe Dame never passes the ball and always is a ball hog, you're probably going to notice when he does that, and then when he passes the ball and is playing off ball, you don't notice as much, right? Or if you don't think Drew's good, like you probably will notice more of the bad than the good. And if you think he's like so amazing and it's awesome because he's a local guy, it's like you'll notice the blocks will stand out more and you'll think he's awesome. You know, it's just how it is now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like you could have video of something, have it be 100% scientifically proven as a fact, and there'll still be people who will come out with some sort of study that disproves you or tell you it's fake news or whatever. That's just how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's frustrating for me because there's games this season where I went into them like, okay, Drew, please don't make me criticize you tonight because I've been criticizing you a lot lately. I want to win this game, and I don't want to get stuck having to criticize you again. Then everybody thinks I pick on you. I would go into games like watching him like, please just don't mess up. And then he just make a bunch of mistakes, and then it's like, yikes.
Well, once again, it's not necessarily Drew's fault, but like those games when Nurk was out and he was the starting center or whatever, like we had no backup center, you know. It was Trendon Watford who's undersized. Like that's not Drew's fault that he had no help either. But like,
it's not even.
He should have never been the starting center at all on any team, you know. But
it's just not. It's not even just Drew. Yeah. I'm tired of having to sit here and criticize role players, man. Mm-hmm. And that's what this offseason comes down to. At a base minimum, is getting better role players. You can do that and stay under the tax. I don't know. Like, there is so many different possibilities for this offseason that Cronin shouldn't desperately have to pursue one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But anyway, I mean, the Dame conversation is just silly to me. Like, he's not holding back anyone. He's averages 7.5 assists per game. When he shoots, it's a good thing because he's the most efficient player on the team. Gray says, I think Winslow's was a very valuable team player that we were without. What kept him out for so long? His ankle is just a complete mess. He's very injury prone, but honestly, he was wildly overrated. He's been wildly overrated.
Yeah, well, Winslow or yeah, I mean he had surgery right at the end of the season again. I guess his joint was messed up or something, and it wasn't healing. So there was no. They probably should have recognized that sooner, but yeah, he wasn't going to play at all this season once he heard that.
But also, it's apparently such a mess that it's hard to even know what the right medical procedure is, which is not good. But
and they're not even sure if he's going to be able to play at an NBA level again, let alone help a team win or anything.
Yeah, he wasn't even a guy that, I mean, we're talking about a dude whose best position at, what is he, like 6'5" 3/4, barely 6'6". His best position is probably center.
Yeah.
And he really struggled defending on the perimeter last year, so it's not like he's a switchable small ball center either. And then when he played center, he really struggled to rebound against other centers. And then he shot 55% at the rim. Nurkic shoots like 65% and gets roasted. And Winslow's like 10 percentage points below that, and his best position is center. But then, because I did his player review, Eric, Justice Winslow last season took 29% of his shots from 3 to 10 feet and shot 39% from there. That's terrible. He took almost 11% of his shots from 10 to 16 feet and shot 29% from there. So we're talking almost 40% of his shot diet comes from a 2-point range where he shoots between like 29 and 39%. That's horrible. And we know he's not a 3-point shooter. He is inefficient from every single level.
Mm-hmm. I wish he wasn't, but
I wish he wasn't either. You know what I mean? But it's like, why are we trying to make that guy out to be super valuable when he's not like super versatile defensively? His best position, he's extremely undersized at. We say Swiss Army knife. How is he a Swiss Army knife? What is he good at? He's a good passer. What else was he specifically good at, Gray?
Got cooked by guards.
Got cooked by guards. Occasionally he'd have good moments against bigs.
Guards got cooked on our team, but
when I was making his positives for his player review, by the way, if you haven't watched his player review on the main channel, go check him out. I dropped one on him. I dropped one on Jabari. Then I'm dropping one on Keon right after this is done. Then I'll drop one tomorrow. We're in player review season. Then definitely go check it out. But I was trying to think of positives for him. I was struggling. One of the positives was play as a small ball setter. One of the positives was like situationally he had some good defensive moments against certain types of players. Mostly when he was a small ball center and needed to be physical. Not out on the perimeter. And one of the positives was physicality, which kind of went with, you know, the small ball center thing. Like, that's really what we value, is somebody that is extremely inefficient from all three levels. 6'5", 6'6" center that can't defend the perimeter. That's what we value. But we don't value Dame, huh? I don't understand. Anyway, like we need better players than that, guys. If we're like, Justice Winslow would not play if he was healthy. He wouldn't play for a single team playing in the playoffs right now.
He didn't really play for the Clippers when they had massive injuries. Kawhi wasn't playing at all, and
yeah, he was a cast-off. And he's one of those cast-offs that we take in and try and convince ourselves that he's good or that he can help a team win. And then...
super nice guy.
Yeah, like in a small sample size, maybe, but small sample sizes throw everything out of proportion.
Murray had an Australian $2 donation. Thank you. Murray just got back from school. Anything cool happen yet?
Way to rhyme. Good job. Define cool.
I mean, Dame was at the front row of the Nets Sixers game. He's convincing players to come here, so we're getting them all. Winslow, Dorian Finney-Smith, Mikal Bridges, they're all Embiid's coming here. We got it.
Blazer fan says he can help the team win sometimes. By that logic, any NBA player ever can help a team win sometimes. Like, yeah. Truly Spencer PDX says, with a $2 dono. When are you dropping the Brant Rant compilation? Thank you, Spencer, for the $2 dono. That'll be later in the offseason, probably July, when we don't have as much video content to make because the offseason's pretty much done. That's when you'll get that probably. So
Winslow could have dropped 40 in the playoffs though.
I know exactly what Trevor.
Yeah.
yeah, and then yeah. I don't know, guys. Like, he's Winslow just doesn't cut it. Even when healthy, he doesn't cut it. But he's never healthy, anyways. Like, this team needs to move on from him. If this team values it, like, there's just certain guys on this team where if this team views them as a part of the rotation going into next year, they are not serious about winning. Kevin Knox is one of those guys. Justice Winslow is one of those guys. Cam Reddish is one of those guys. Trendon Watford is one of those guys. Am I missing someone?
Did you say Nas?
Nas is probably one of those guys. Yep, Nas is one of those guys. Keon is one of those guys as well, Aeromancer. Yes, Keon.
That's why I think they should just cut all, or not cut, but, move on from all those guys in a trade and just by default then having to fill those roster spots with other players. Because, even if we had a Skylar Mays the whole season instead of Keon, maybe some of those times without Dame and CJ we have... not CJ. I don't know why I'm saying Dame and Ant. We had a capable ball handler, that could play. Might have made a difference.
I wonder if we can trade Keon Winslow in a second for somebody that's able to score 36 in a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great. That'd be great value, right? God. Disgusting. As far as Jabari Walker and Skylar Mays goes, I'm okay with those guys being third string next year.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's if you just come in and are insanely improved and light the world on fire, then maybe you're a second string for a playoff team by the end of the year, right? Yeah. Don't rule that out. Mm. You give guys opportunities during the regular season, but you don't count on guys like that needing to be rotation players. There's a difference between guys coming in and having a chance to maybe work their way into the rotation and guys coming in where they have to be in the rotation because you don't have anyone better and they're not good enough to cut it. Jabari Walker is still young. He's a future piece. There's still a bunch of things he needs to get better at in order to crack the rotation for a team that wins games. Mm-hmm. So, but he has time. He's young. He has time. You don't have to.
He's the perfect guy who doesn't have to play, but if in a pinch, if you need someone for some spot minutes or because of injury, he's not going to super mess up or anything. And that's fine, but you can't have those guys as your main guys you count on, like you said.
Yeah, there's a difference between guys that can play in a pinch and not screw things up and guys you need to actually do things on the court. There's a difference.
By the way, Norm had 42, not 36.
42?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. So even more. And trading Norm was still the right decision, but basically just the fact that we value Justice Winslow and Keon Johnson still drives me absolutely crazy. Neither one of those guys have become guys you can count on to play a ninth man role on a winning team.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Did you see Eric Bledsoe was involved in some sort of cheating scandal of point shaving or something?
Yeah,
Speaking of,
dude. Oh man, how that dude has fallen off something hard. Gray says, "Yeah, now that I look back at the schedule, Dame did play all those games. Yes, he did. Not sure what I was remembering. I think it was how they played in many games without him, even when losing. Well, guess what? They were able to play without him because, Shaedon Sharpe was shooting 48% from 3, Jeremy Grant was shooting 48% from 3, Nasir Little was shooting 47% from 3, and Yusuf Nurkic was shooting 45% from 3 to start the season in the first month. So when all your other guys are making almost half their threes, even guys you wouldn't have expected to make 35% of them in Nurkic's case, or Nas, where it's like, hopefully you can shoot 36 or 37%. When they're making almost half their threes, like, yeah, it's going to offset the loss of a truly great offensive player. It's going to make everything easier. Guess what? Without Dame, when the shots stop dropping, the offense is a absolute train wreck. It's an absolute train wreck. Just look at the bench for the good part of the season when Dame was off the court and Ant was trying to run the bench unit, and it was terrible.
If you want guys that can pass, you also need shooters. And the Blazers outside of Ant and Simons or Ant and Grant, unless you want to include Nurkic, for part of the season, they had very little shooting on this team.
Yeah. So Dame is not holding anything back. Like, that's just silly. It's just silly. Go out there and get better role players and see what you got.
Snackcake says, would you guys box Canelo for 3 rounds for Wemby? What happens when I get knocked out in 10 seconds? And then do I still get credit? Do we still get Wemby?
Yeah.
Because if he knocks me out cold, I don't have to come back in and die, sure, I'll do that.
Yeah, just as long. Am I okay after I get knocked out? Do I have permanent brain damage?
You might have a little bit. I'll do it. I'm 43. I'll sacrifice.
No, we don't need your brain damage, Derek. That's not a good. See, I want Wemby for this channel almost as much as I want him as a Blazer fan. Maybe as much as I want him as a Blazer fan, okay? So, sacrificing your brain for that is kind of counterproductive in a way. So, yeah. If I don't have brain damage... yeah, I did catch it. Anyway. I was wondering if anyone caught that. Yeah, no, I will get knocked out by Canelo for Wemby as long as I don't have permanent brain damage.
What does Nate Robinson have permanent brain damage? Maybe we need to do a study on that or something. Howard after he got put to sleep.
Yeah. He didn't even get put to sleep by anybody that was legitimate though.
I know.
Canelo is short, only 5'8". Maybe you could last 3 rounds, Eric. You just hold your fist out and let him run into it.
Dude, I'd break 5 ribs because he'd just be punching me right in the body. Ow, man. Because I'd be protecting my face, so I just let him fall.
Yeah, just we'll set up a camera feed for live streams in the hospital room. You'll have a leg hanging in a cast and your arms hanging in a cast, but we'll get a mic set up attached to your cast so you can at least talk, and we can celebrate having Wemby.
I pretty much guarantee my sternum would be broken off and would never be repaired. So I guess would I take breaking my sternum off for Wemby? Sure.
You just got to make sure you get punched in the head before you get punched in the sternum.
Yeah.
You got to duck your head into the punch.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, so that you get knocked out and then you lose and then you don't hurt anything else.
I know that this is going to hurt really bad and knock me out. Let me make it easier for you.
You can always get a new sternum, but Wemby is generational,
True.
Says Devin. Yeah. Speaking, okay, well, since we're on the topic, since we're here, did you see the latest Box of One mock draft?
Was that the one where we got Wemby and then took
we got Wemby,
Maxwell
we got the
Lewis
#1 pick,
or something,
and he
James
said,
Najee?
And Adam said that Portland would be a phenomenal landing spot for Wemby. And Oz.
Well, he would.
He would, yeah. Because, being able to play off Dame, he and Dame would work really well. He could transform Portland defensively. Everything I said Wemby would do for... no surprise. It was just cool to hear somebody else say that this would actually be a good landing spot for him, because I feel like all the casuals and all the national media is like, Portland's the worst place to ever be. And that's all we ever hear. So it was refreshing to hear something else. But since we are on the topic.
While you're bringing that up, Rahi had asked a question about the Bulls pick earlier that I want to answer. Will kind of tie into Tankathon too. He said, let me see. Where is it? I can't find it anymore. But something to the effect of, do we think that the Blazers will use the Knicks pick to get the Bulls pick back, or will we change the protections on it? I think they're going to just like wait and see, because I still think they like having the protections on that pick to where they're not doing something stupid. So yeah, I think they'll just. I don't know. I don't think they'll just do it just to do it. I think they'll only do it if they have to, and I'm pretty sure they're going to have to, because they need to. But yeah, I think. I don't know. I'd hope that they not just give up a pick or change the protections and then end up not having any reason for doing so.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, here's the Tankathon. You guys know the deal. I don't need to explain anything. I just need to simulate. Fingers crossed for some good luck. At 14, New Orleans. At 13, Toronto. At 12, OKC. At 11, Orlando via Chicago. At 10, should be Dallas. It is Dallas. So far, so good. At 9, Utah. Once we get past this point, if no teams move up, I'm feeling good, because I don't want Dallas or Utah to move up, obviously. That's kind of scary. And the next 3 teams are Orlando, Indiana, and Washington, so they're Eastern Conference teams. So if we can get past 9 without any teams moving up, that's a really good start. Obviously, Blazers matter most. At 8, Washington. So far, so good. At 7, this is where we enter danger territory. At 7, it's your Portland Trail Blazers.
Over. So that means Indiana and Orlando.
Ooh. Oh.
Indiana and Orlando.
Charlotte, Houston, Orlando, Indiana, San Antonio, and Detroit.
Shouldn't have lost to the Spurs that one game.
Oh wait, I used exactly. I used the wrong browser. I'm supposed to use Chrome. What am I doing?
Jackson just timed out Murray. Oh man.
What did Murray do? Why is Jackson?
He said rigged 3 times in a row.
He said rigged?
So it was rigged.
Oh.
So spamming, but yeah.
That was a little.
Murray.
That was just a little spam, Jackson. That was a little spam. That wasn't enough. Okay, let's see if Chrome is better, okay? This is a battle of the internet browsers, okay? That's what I'm going to turn this segment into. New Orleans, Toronto. Whoops. Except this one skips for some reason. OKC, Orlando. Utah moved down one, so Dallas is top 4. This is already looking worse.
Utah is rewarded for throwing the last 3 games.
Yeah. No, Utah moved down and Dallas moved up.
I mean, Dallas is rewarded for throwing the last 3 games. So what I'm saying.
Washington at 9, Orlando at 8, which means Portland should be at 7. It's San Antonio dropping 4 spots.
That means we're in the top 4.
Yep, with Charlotte, Houston at 6, and Detroit at 5. Top 4 time. Want to see Dallas at 4. It's Dallas.
Let's go. So who's left?
It's Portland, Charlotte, and Indiana.
All right.
At 3, it's Indiana. I like Google Chrome now. At 2 is Charlotte, and at 1, your Portland Trailblazers win the Chrome Tankathon, because Chrome is better than Microsoft Is that what it is? Microsoft Edge? Yeah. Anyway, there.
Technically, ninth is the worst pick we can get, Gray, but that would require 4 teams below us moving down or moving up, and the 4 teams above us all moving down.
These are Portland's odds for each pick, okay? So pretty even, 1 through 4, 2.2 for 5, 19.6 for 6, 26.7 for 7, 8.7 for 8, 0.6 for 9. Anyway, that is Tankathon.
Yeah. So what are we doing at 1 here?
Can't draft Greg Oden again. Draft Scoot.
Yeah. See, this is a year, like, even looking back in the history books, like, I don't think you could... Like, we're not going to have the Danny Ainge, oh, if I had the number 1 pick that year in hindsight, I would have taken Kevin Durant, you know?
Yeah, nobody will be able to claim that. Like, it is agreed upon. We already know. If anybody disagrees with this, I don't think anybody does, but if you disagree with this, okay, stop. We already know who the number 1 pick is. The thing is what team will go at the start of the sentence? We already know the last part of the sentence. Select Victor. It'll be, wait, how does the sentence go? With the first overall pick in the 2023 NBA draft, the blank select Victor Wembanyama. Something France team, I don't know, affiliation. Yeah.
Janot asks, in all seriousness, would you want Wemby to start at 4, like Mobley, with a jump shot next to Nurkic? Yes. I think at least his first 2 years in the NBA, he should probably be more of a power forward than a center.
Yep. And if you can go get, like a better rim protecting center and it makes sense, like a Claxton next to Wembanyama would be awesome, right? So Grant's at the 3. If you get Wembanyama starts at the 4, Grant starts at the 3, and you just go all in on rim protection, okay? You have the best rim protecting duo of forwards in the league, and then you just try and get good players off the bench. And like if anything happens where Eric, would you trade Wemby for Giannis if he became available?
I mean, I don't know. I'm fine if that happens, but I also really want Wembanyama. Yeah.
But basically, my point is, if you had the number 1 pick and then you draft Wembanyama and you're just going with better role players, basically you're in a position where if any player ever becomes available, you can get them if you trade Wemby. Like, if Giannis becomes available, you can get him because you could trade Wemby for him. If Embiid becomes available, I'm not saying I'd do it because I wouldn't for Embiid, but like if Embiid becomes available and Dame is like, go get him or else, then you could get Embiid. And you could probably keep Sharp and Ant. Like, that is how good Wemby is. So, well, you'd have to match salary, but that's what it becomes.
Please stop, Gray. He's already said the number 1 pick is an exception.
Yeah. Please stop spreading. You're spreading a lot of misinformation.
That doesn't mean he won't trade it, but like Tori said, if Giannis became available and we could possibly get him for the number 1 pick, yeah, sure. I wouldn't blame this team for doing it, but they're not just going to trade it because Dame says it.
He said...
It wasn't a question.
There
was no question mark.
Yeah, where's the question mark? Also, where would the question mark supposed to be? I don't know, Gray. We appreciate you, but I don't understand what's going on tonight. Murray with the $2 Australian dollar dono says Jackson was paid off by coaching vet to silence me.
Welcome back, Murray.
And then right below that, Jackson says, Murray, I'd like to take this time to apologize. I let my trigger finger get the best of me. Mm-hmm. Happens to the best of us, Jackson, especially me. So, I understand. Anyway, thank you for the donos. Yeah. First pick is an exception. Dame said as much. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, short of that kind of situation. But I mean, Embiid's pushing 30 now. I know he's still. I mean, obviously he's the MVP, most likely. But I mean, there is a discussion there whether it's even worth trading the number one pick for. But yeah, I think if it's Giannis, you pretty much have to, though. I don't know.
Jackson is trying to lose his wrench. He's threatening Eric Olsen now, Eric.
Jeez, man.
There was a comment. Where was it? You have to get Giannis if it's for 1B. Well, yeah, I mean, but like, chances of Giannis becoming available is like 1% at most, you know? So that's the thing is everybody's like, oh, you got to go all in, or oh, you got to go the young route. Guess what? If you do it properly, it's not a terrible thing to raise the baseline of this team from like a how good they can be right now level to, oh, they, should be at least in the playoffs. And then having long-term upside, and then also having pieces to make a splash for a true all-star or superstar player. That's probably the best position for this team, is to try and raise the baseline through improving role players to like, yeah, this team should be at worst like a 7 or an 8 seed, and then maybe has a chance in the first round to compete. I mean, like, look at the Lakers against the Grizzlies. They split the first 2 games. Minnesota almost beat Denver in game 2. Like, you got a chance, right? If you have the right role players, depending on matchups and how things go, injuries always come into play, etc. So if you can get the team so that that's the baseline just by improving role players, and then you have a bunch of young guys with upside to get better, so maybe you can grow beyond that baseline through internal development the next couple of years, but then you're always in position with whoever you draft this year, Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, and future first, to make that splash for that star.
Like Phoenix did with Durant.
Yeah, you're doing all 3 things decently. Like, you're ready for a splash, decent right now, and you didn't give up your future yet. That's not a terrible position to be in. It's just how, will Dame be okay with that if we get good enough role players?
Mm-hmm.
And who are those role players, and how do we get them? That's the question of this offseason.
Yeah. Well, I saw some questions earlier about Kawhi. Now Almax asking about PG-13. Here's the problem. They just broke ground and are opening that state-of-the-art arena in LA. There's no way he's trading Paul George or Kawhi for a bunch of future picks and starting a rebuild in LA. So they're going to need players that they don't have to rebuild. They're going to go for trade those. If Kawhi and Paul George become available, they're going to trade them for similar type players just on different teams. So I don't really see them trading Kawhi for like Nurk and Simons and 4 first or something,
Yep. Anyway, if you guys want 5 minutes of life advice,
I have one more thing to add to this.
Ask it while Eric adds to this.
So I posed my question from last stream onto Twitter, and I wanted to share the results with you guys.
Yeah. So
I worded it hypothetical. If the Blazers got the number 2 pick and the Nets said no to trading for McHale, would you trade the New Orleans number 2 pick, which is obviously for Scoot Henderson, and Portland would get back Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, pick number 14, and a future first? 36.9% said yes, 20.1% said no, 28.3% said the Blazers would need more, and then 14.7% said Pelicans wouldn't do it. And the replies and the feedback I got, there was over 1,300 votes, and it was all over the map. To like, Portland would never consider this, and then the next message would be New Orleans would hang up the phone, and it was like all like both sides of it was crazy. So yeah, it's just I don't know if that means it's like a pretty good trade because there was so much on both sides. But yeah, it's definitely something that I think the Blazers should consider if it's on the table.
Yep. Gray says, "See that look on Tori's face? I did that, bro. I wasn't even looking at chat. So what are you talking about?" Kieran with the $5 donut says, "In honor of 420, is there any particular reason you guys don't like weed?" My mom said she disowned me when I was in high school if she ever caught me smoking weed, and she sounded 1000% serious about it. So I just didn't smoke weed, and I never got into it, and I'm still not into it. I don't do it. I tried it a couple times, wasn't for me.
I've never tried it, never will. Just something I'm not interested in. Don't feel the need to. I don't really like doing things that alter the mind or body or anything too much. So I try to stay away from medicine as much as possible. But yeah, and I've never smoked a cigarette or anything like that either. So I know it's super lame, but yeah, just not for me.
Yep.
Vaping is even worse.
Yeah. Stop peer pressuring me, you shady Kiwi. I will not be peer pressured. He said, "You still have 40 minutes. Take a fatty bong rip, Tori." I am unable to be peer pressured. If I couldn't be peer pressured by multiple people at parties, then how am I going to be peer pressured on my own live stream? Nice try. Not going to work. Madden Mobile says Tori should rip a dab, TBH.
No, Karen, that would be very low on my list of stuff to do.
Do you guys want life advice, or is it just going to be or are we just going to talk about weed?
Ed Halen says, "Don't you want to be cool?" No, I really don't care.
I mean, I think I'm cool because I get to talk about basketball to thousands of people.
Oh,
8,000 people, because we got 8,000 subs, so shout out to us. But I think that's cooler than smoking weed.
Oh, Snacking just asked would I do it for Wemby. Oh man, yeah.
You bet. You
yeah.
just said you'd take brain damage.
I would, but that's luckily it's not on the. It's not. I'm not gonna do it like because we got Wemby. Like if you could guarantee like the guy who picks the number combination could rig it for me if I took a bong hit. Yeah, sure, I'll do one.
I mean, I said I'll learn French if we get Wemby, so I mean that's more difficult than you just letting one rip, right? So
if you guys want to have a Blazers Uprise session without us, that's fine. But
the Blazers Uprise Blaze session, yeah. Huh. Anyway, Gabe said he's ripping right now. I mean, no surprise there, Mr. Vape Gummy.
Dro wants to ruin the one friendship he has on this show between the two of us.
I thought you were going to say the one friend he has.
But Snackcake also asked how my my healthy weight loss thing is going. Actually, so 2 days ago, I stepped on the scale and the first two numbers were 2.7 for the first time in several years. So it's going pretty good.
Nice. You're gonna be blazing.
I feel really good. Like my belt went to like a notch it hadn't been to in a while. So yeah.
Nice. Keep going.
I don't really have a general strategy other than I'm trying to not be a pig and eat a lot of fast food, and it's tough with kids and soccer practice and stuff, like, so we have to stop sometimes and get food on the way home and things like that because we don't have time to cook. But yeah, just basically cut out soda other than if I'm eating out. basically not have any crappy foods in the house, so I can't just sit here and watch basketball and pig out. And so yeah, just forcing myself to drink water instead of soda and stuff, and then I'm just lifting a little bit of weights and stuff. That's pretty much it.
That run soon, just as long as you guys don't fight, okay? Because fighting is bad. Fighting is no fighting. So story time. My rec game got canceled on Tuesday. My championship game got canceled 5 minutes into the second half because of fighting. And Eric assumed that it meant I was fighting someone, which I didn't know that you thought I was about that life, but I'm not.
Joke, obviously.
Okay, so all right. So our rec is no refs. Our Tuesday Thursday league. Our Saturday league has refs and is 5-on-5 and is super try hard. And you remember Derek Ravio?
Yeah.
Apparently he's playing in that league this season. Like it's a really good league, Vancouver City League. So looking forward to that. But
that's the Sunday one.
That's the Sunday one. Now it's Saturday.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the weekend one is super try hard. But Tuesday Thursday is like the league I've played in for over a decade, or about a decade. And it's call your own fouls, which can get problematic at times. So there's this dude we always play against, and he calls the most ticky-tack fouls. And the way I go about calling fouls in that league is I just try and make it balanced. So if I'm playing against somebody that calls a bunch of ticky-tack fouls, if I get bumped going up, I'm going to call it. I'm going to call ticky-tack fouls that I'm not just going to like make up stuff, but I'm going to call more fouls. If somebody I'm playing against is also calling more fouls. If somebody I'm playing against lets it be physical, I'll let it be physical against me too. I'll keep it balanced. And there's this dude that always frustrates everyone because he calls ticky-tack foul after ticky-tack foul. More ticky-tack fouls than probably anybody in the entire rec league. But then when you call anything, he complains more than anyone about other people calling fouls. So it's just super hypocritical. And I call a foul on a defender, okay, and it wasn't even him. I get bumped going up, and I call a foul, and he starts getting all mad. That's weak, that's not a foul. So then I tell him it's the same stuff. He says, shut the F up. I say, shut the F up. It's always the same thing with you. And then we move on, right? Like we've had this conversation 10 times where we both tell each other to shut the F up, and I tell him he would hate playing against himself, he would fight himself, and then we move on, right? Like, whatever. We were like, it's not the type of thing where I get worked up about, right? So that's how things start, okay? Then we got this 50-year-old dude on our team who played D1 as a shooter, like small D1. He gets blocked by this 20-year-old and calls a foul. And the 20-year-old tells him, that's a terrible call. You need to get your glasses. This pisses off the 50-year-old. He sticks his head into the dude's chest and says, what'd you say to me? What'd you say to me? Like pushes him back with his head. So then like a couple people walk up to him like, dude, chill. And he's like, shut up. Screw you. Like maybe a little bit more flavorful language. So it's just getting super feisty at this point. So then the dude I initially got into it with, like, next possession is bringing the ball down the court. Somebody on my teammate who wasn't involved in any of this just decides to, like, wrap him up and hack him when he tries to drive past him. So he wraps him up. The guy that gets fouled turns around, throws the dude to the floor. Dude gets up and just tries to swing on him. And the kid that wrapped him up got thrown to the floor and then tried to swing at him has a dad who's also on my team. His dad comes running off the bench, running out, sprinting at the guy that threw him to the ground. And he's like trying to swing and being held back. And like the 50-year-old also ends up in it. And he's all like yelling. And all of a sudden everybody's yelling and like people are trying to punch each other. So I sat there trying to break it up. A couple other people sat there trying to break it up. But they just sat there and screamed at each other for 10 minutes. And the guys running the game, running the table, just walked out. And now the dad, who's like a good player, my second best player, really good shooter, is suspended the whole next season. somebody else is suspended the whole next season. So now all of a sudden that rec league is going to suck because it was like 2 or 3 really good players that are going to be suspended next season. So that was my fight story. I did not I ended up being the one trying to calm down the dude that I was just telling to shut the F up to.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. It was, yeah, so that's what happened. Nothing super fun. I know you guys were hoping that I absolutely laid somebody out and then matrixed a punch and swept the leg or something. I know that's what you guys were wishing for, but I am not a fighter, okay, believe it or not. I am a lover, all right? Not a fighter. So, just in case you were wondering.
Yeah. Well, that sucks.
I was playing well too, man. We were down, Eric. We were down 20 in the first half. We cut it to 1 when that happened.
Yeah.
I was playing great. I was so frustrated. I'm still frustrated. Are you a hair puller? Nope. I'm a lover. What do you mean?
What kind
I'm a
of question?
I mean, I guess you can be a lover and a hair puller, but I mean, let's not get into that.
Aeromancer says he recently strained his Achilles doing a workout. Have you guys ever had serious injuries? And if so, how did you deal with them or get over not being able to be active? Have you had injuries, Tori?
Not really.
Your knee
You
used to
had foot
bother you.
surgery, so
Yeah.
well, I mean, my knees still bother me.
Yeah. But yeah, so back in 2019, my last basketball game was actually our 3-on-3 tournament. But for going on like 7 or 8 years, I could basically not jump because my Achilles had gotten so bad. It wasn't an Achilles pull, but it was my Achilles would slightly come off of the bone every time I jumped, so it would then bleed and then calcify over, so it formed this big knot that kind of like limited the movement of my Achilles. And they had to basically slice my Achilles open to get into the spot to fix it. So it was basically like I had Achilles surgery. And I had just gotten cleared to start doing some running and being able to play basketball a little bit in March of 2020 when, because I had surgery the day after that 3-on-3 tournament. And so I get to the gym, start playing basketball a couple times, and then COVID hits and all the gyms closed down and stuff. So yeah, it was like rough trying to recover from that. And then obviously, like you said, it's tough not being active, Aeromancer. So that's when I started putting on a lot of this weight. And it didn't help not being able to play basketball because that's my whole life. That's how I've used basketball as my cardio to not be a fat butt. So yeah, that was rough. And then by the time I got back to being able to play basketball, like the extra weight was just, I had never had knee problems before, but like my knees just started hurting so bad when I played. So now it's like I have to rest my knees for a couple days every time I play. So that's why I'm trying to lose weight, is hoping that once I lose some weight, it'll take some pressure off my knees and I can get back to normal, because I was really looking forward to actually being able to run and stuff again after having that surgery.
Yep. Tori was out for 1 week with a fractured beard injury. I'm actually obsessed with my beard, man.
But yeah, Aeromancer, there's kind of two things with the Achilles especially. One is never push it. So like if it's hurting you, like just try to do other stuff to where it's not aggravating that. But two, like if it's just like a little, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but if you can like play through it and stuff, or like still do workouts, and it's just something that, hurts a little bit, I would probably maybe try to push through it a little bit, as long as it's not feeling like it's getting worse or whatever.
Yep. Consult your doctor. Gray Hughes says arthritis, sore bonus. Anyway, anything else?
Anyone have any last minute questions?
Yeah, we'll answer last minute questions. Keon Johnson player review will be coming next hour 2, and it's already pretty much edited. And then if you're not yet subscribed to NBA Uprise,
this is life advice. We asked that like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, life advice. Yes, yes, life advice. If you're not yet subscribed to NBA Uprise, I'm gonna need I think like 16 of you to go over there and subscribe so we hit 1,000. Okay, we're doing playoff watch parties for various games over there. The plan is to have it be like kind of a small group of us. You know, maybe get Gabe on a stream, get Eric on a stream. I did one with Chase today, play Chase. He's Chase McGraw. He's been in our chat before. So definitely go subscribe. I'm gonna put the link in the comment section, and the link is in the description. So we just need like a few of you to reach 1,000. I would greatly appreciate it. And you can come hang out with us during playoff games. Got a whole graphics package for it and everything. I'm going to try and get that off the ground. I'll have like a Blazers offseason blueprint on that channel, as well as offseason blueprints for other teams. So definitely go subscribe. What's your advice on saving money and investing? Budget and stick within your budget. And then I don't think we can legally give investing advice on YouTube. I don't.
I'm not a financial advisor, but something that worked for my wife and I was eliminating debt. So if you can't afford to pay for a trip, or if you can't afford to pay for a pair of new shoes, don't put it on a credit card. Save up until you can buy it, and then always have a little bit of like a nest egg or whatever in savings, that in case you have a tough time where like one of you loses a job or something like that, or if you lose your job if you're single, or whatever, you have a little bit of money to fall back on when times are rough. But yeah. Other than that, just kind of, you have to be either disciplined to save money, or you have to, you're basically never going to.
Yeah. What did I want to read? Oh, Taylor Packer says life advice was my idea. I think it should be life advice sponsored by Taylor Packer. Well, okay. Taylor, just let me know where I should send the invoice for $1,000 a month. And I got you. Okay.
John Willis asked, should I take a lower paying job at Nike for the discount? If it's not like a hugely lower salary and you can get by with it, yeah, Nike's a good company to work for. But also,
don't take less money because you can spend money.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think the employee store is kind of overrated sometimes. But the other thing is, it's important, like, how much you can move up. So, like, if you're just getting a job at Nike and there's no promotional opportunities there, like, I'd probably say it's not worth the discount. But if you have a place where you're starting at a lower pay, but it has the ability to move up if you do a good job, I would say that's probably worth it then, because it is a good company.
Should I take a job with less pay but more free time? I mean, it depends on how much less pay and how much more free time you got, Eric. That's only a question that you can answer, man. You can always do something on the side in your free time, and maybe you make as much but have a little bit extra, or you get to do something fun to make up that gap. I don't know. That's, different ways you can go about that, man.
Whoever asked if I have cats earlier, I do not have cats. I forgot who asked. It was Eric Olson, yeah.
Should I gamble my life savings on us winning the lottery?
No.
I would not gamble $5 on us winning the lottery.
I would gamble on us not winning the lottery, and that way you lose your life savings if you get Wemby, and then you can still be fine as a homeless person. But then, yeah.
And if you're going to bet your life savings on the lottery, use Bet Online with the promo code BELIEVE so you receive a 50% reward bonus.
Exactly.
Hashtag ad. Anyway. Yeah. Nice NFT spam. Good try. Goodbye. That dude was... That Greg account was spamming Max Cam Reddish in the NBA Uprise stream. Eric.
Oh, yeah.
So that is Max Cam Reddish right there.
Yep, I realize that now.
And now I know who Max Cam Reddish is in the Discord. So, anyway, nobody wants your NFTs. Anyway. Snack Inc., it looks like they have eliminated those, unfortunately, for Taylor Packer. Now he's all alone. Al Mac, we did a whole stream on Blazers Uprise Live, second channel, link in description, hashtag plug, on playoff predictions. So if you want to know our playoff predictions, go watch that stream.
I had the Suns.
Yeah, I had the Suns too. I should have. The Nuggets have looked good. Suns have looked kind of questionable.
Wait, is Jackson trying to get Taylor Packer to contact him?
Yeah, Jackson. I mean, you could just hit him up.
Yeah, you could just tell him you like him.
Yeah. You don't have to be all weird about it, but that's fine. Anyway, anything else, chat? I'm gonna ask chat instead of you, Eric. Anything else, chat?
Taylor says the lottery hyperpram is May 16th. The draft is June 21st or something like that.
Great, I don't care what you talked about. We're pretty clear about what we will and won't talk about, so please don't violate that. Anyway. Where are you going to watch it, Eric? Says Snack Inc.
Still in process.
We're gonna have to figure out how to get synced.
Yeah, we'll find
with wherever you are at.
You could just watch. I could put it on the screen.
I mean, I guess. I mean, just as long as you can have control and pause, I guess. I don't know. Suns Valley Podcast says, what was y'all's reaction to Dame in Brooklyn? He's watching his boy Embiid and his boy McHale because both of them are going to be Blazers along with Wembanyama next year, so. And LeBron.
I won.
Taylor, yes, we avoid divisive topics that aren't sports related. What's up, Carson? You tuned in right when we're leaving. Hi, Carson. Bye, Carson. Anything else, Eric?
No, thanks everyone for watching. Appreciate you all. Hope you all have a good evening. Check out Tori's live streams over the weekend, and hope to see you back here on Monday.
Yep, videos continuing on the main channel. And yeah, it's funny. Carson comes in and it's like, oh, that means it's time for us to go. It's 2 hours in, man. Anyway, I'm just teasing you, Carson. Hopefully you guys have a good rest of your...
Carter had a donation, too.
Oh, Carter Dick with the $2 dono 2 minutes ago. Said, just got here. Is he? Is who?
He's asking if Dame is recruiting.
Oh,
Again, he was
yes.
front row for the Nets Sixers game, so yes.
Next, he's going to Milwaukee and Miami, so he can get Giannis and Butler in on it too. So
And Bam.
and Bam to come off the bench behind Nurkic. Anyway, hopefully you guys have a good rest of your night. We will catch you live again on this channel on Monday, and we're getting close to May. It's under a month till draft lottery. Draft lottery is only in 3.5 weeks, Eric.
Let's go.
That's scary. That's scary. Anyway, have a good rest of your Thursday night. Have a good weekend. Come join us on an NBA Uprise if you want to. Link in description for playoff watch parties. And we are out of here. Thank you to Bet Online. Until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.